Dear students, today we would be doing question answers of Unit 2, Jinnah's Vision of Pakistan. Before I move on to the question answers, I would like to discuss the writing technique that is present on page 22 of this chapter. Here you are taught to write an introductory paragraph. In the last unit, you were introduced to pre-writing techniques, and you were given such kind of techniques as clustering, listing, free writing, looping, etc. And in the first unit, I discussed clustering technique with you. Now this is a way forward. That means once you have made a mind map of what you have planned to write in the essay, then as a first step you write the introductory paragraph. So what are the important aspects that should be considered while writing the introductory paragraph? These are the three important parts that are present in the introductory paragraph: the opening statement, then the supporting statement, and the thesis statement. Now I have picked up the sentences from the first paragraph of Qaid's Vision of Pakistan, that is Unit 2, and I have tried to analyze them keeping in mind the introductory paragraph. The opening statement is where you are being told that on 11th August 1947, Quaid-e-Azam delivered speech before the Constituent Assembly. That is the opening statement. And the opening statement is just like a hook. That means it captures the attention of the reader. So the writer might choose some interesting thing, or he might introduce some interesting idea in the opening statement to capture the attention of the reader. Then the supporting statement is the details that supplement the introductory statement, and they provide a link to the thesis statement. So in this case, we are interested to find out what the Qaid's speech was. That means what was it based on, because it was a famous speech, and now we are being told in the supporting statement that why was it famous? Because he went to his vision of Pakistan. Then we move on to the third part of the introductory paragraph, that is the thesis statement. In the thesis statement, the writer gives the purpose and the plan of his essay. So the third sentence of the introductory paragraph, here we are briefly given a summary of the entire essay. So the Quaid-e-Azam, during his speech that he made on 11th August 1947, dwelt on the primary functions and responsibilities of the Virgin Constituent Assembly, warned against certain evils that might befall the new country, and spoke in the defense of the partition of India. So in this sentence, the speech that has been shared in this unit, we are given a brief summary of that speech. So these are the three important aspects on which Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah talked. Now I will discuss another pre-writing technique that was mentioned in Unit 1, and I will analyze this entire essay keeping the technique of listing in mind. So that's also a very easy technique. When you have planned to write an essay, you either make a mind map or you list down the points that come to your mind, so that when you are writing an essay, those points are there in front of you. So keeping this technique in mind, let's now analyze this Unit 2. So the first point that we have here is the speech of Quaid-e-Azam on 11th August 1947 before Constituent Assembly, and he focused on the functions and responsibilities of the assembly. And what did he tell us the functions about the responsibilities of the assembly? The first one was to frame the future constitution of Pakistan, and the second one was to function as a complete sovereignty. So in the first two paragraphs we get the details of these points. Then the Qaid warned against certain evils, and he pointed out the situation of law and order, and he said that the role of the Constituent Assembly is to protect the law and order and take care of the property of the people and their religious beliefs. Then he warned against the evils of bribery and corruption and jobbery and nepotism. So he said that these have been passed on to us as a legacy and we have to uproot them from our society. Then the Qaid spoke in defense of Pakistan, because many people, they were not in favor of the creation of Pakistan. So in the last few paragraphs he is trying to defend the creation of Pakistan, and he says with conviction that the future will prove that the decision that was taken was right. And he says that in this same paragraphs he talks about the minorities, and he emphasizes that the majorities should take care of minorities, and the minorities and majorities should work unitedly for the new state, forgetting about the differences that they have on the basis of religion and caste. Then he also makes a very famous statement which is oft quoted, that the minorities, they were given freedom to practice their religion. And he makes a very beautiful statement there, that you are free to go to your mosques, you are free to go to your temples. So in a way he is telling that the minorities also have full freedom to exercise and to practice their religion according to their wishes and desires. And finally the Qaid sums up his speech, and he says that he believes in the principles of justice and fair play, and by upholding these principles Pakistanis can become one of the greatest nations of the world. So this is in a way a brief summary of the lesson, and by using the technique of listing you can see that the entire essay has been summarized. So similarly you can also use this kind of technique to write an essay. Now I will move on to the question answers. The first question: what were the two main functions of the first Constituent Assembly of Pakistan as mentioned by Jinnah in his speech? The main functions of the first Constituent Assembly were to frame the future constitution of Pakistan and to function as a full and complete sovereign body as the federal legislature. The second question: what is the unprecedented cyclonic revolution which Quaid-e-Azam has talked about in his speech? Why did he call it as unprecedented? By unprecedented cyclonic revolution, Quaid-e-Azam meant the creation of Pakistan and India from subcontinent. Unprecedented means something which has no parallel, and Quaid-e-Azam meant that this partition had no comparison in history, and it was a revolution on the level of a cyclone. That means that it was a very big revolution that occurred, and it had no parallel in the history of world. The next question: how did Quaid-e-Azam express his feelings about bribery, corruption, nepotism and jobbery? Quaid-e-Azam spoke against these evils. He said that we have been passed over these evils as a legacy and we have to get rid of them. He compared bribery and corruption to poison and said that it has to be put down with an iron hand. He said that he would not tolerate any kind of jobbery and nepotism. Girls, please correct this word. By mistake, it has been typed as robbery, so it's jobbery. Question number 4. What were Jinnah's views about the partition of India? The Qaid said that though the creation of Pakistan was not favored by many, but that was the only solution and future would prove it right. The circumstances faced by the people led to this partition, but once it was created, people should accept it and start working together for its progress. Question number 5. What, in the eyes of the Qaid, was the biggest hindrance in the way of India to attain freedom of the foreign occupation? The biggest hindrance in the eyes of the Qaid was the differences between the majorities and minorities. He said that if the people of India had overcome these differences, no power would have kept them in subjugation. Next question. Describe Quaid-e-Azam's views about the minorities as expressed in his address to the First Constituent Assembly. Jinnah gave equal rights and privileges to the minorities, hence giving them an equal status of a citizen like Muslims. He said that they are free to practice their religion according to their wishes. What kind of freedom did the Qaid envision for the people of Pakistan in general? So that is question number 7. The Qaid gave equal rights and privileges to all irrespective of the faith they belong to. He said that all are free to go to their places of worship, and if they would forget their past to work for the progress of their country, there would be a time when they would forget to which religion they belonged and would just be the citizens of the state. Next question. What did Jinnah mean by Hindus would cease to be Hindus and Muslims would cease to be Muslims? By this statement, he meant that Hindus and Muslims will overcome the religious differences and would work in cooperation as citizens of the state. Question number 9. After reading this important speech of the Qaid-e-Azam, what do you think was his vision of Pakistan? Qaid-e-Azam gave a very clear vision of Pakistan in his first speech to the Constituent Assembly. He gave a roadmap to the people by asking them to frame a constitution and to make decisions by exercising the powers given to them by the sovereign legislature. He stated very clearly that it is the duty of the government to maintain law and order and protect the lives, properties, and religious beliefs of the people. He warned them of the evils such as bribery, corruption, nepotism, and jobbery. He advised them to forget about the past and the majorities, and minorities should work in cooperation for the progress of their state. He granted the minorities the freedom to practice their religion according to their will. The last question. Read the last paragraph of this speech and state as to what were the guiding principles of Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Also elaborate the significance of these principles. Qaid-e-Azam made justice and fair play as his guiding principles. If these principles are followed, there would be no corruption in the society. He thought that with these guiding principles, Pakistan would become one of the greatest nations of the world. So that's the end of this unit. So I thank you girls for being patient.